We'll get started here in just a moment. We're letting everybody load into the Zoom app and we'll get started shortly. All righty. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Tuesday, November 2nd. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. You know, to celebrate being in November, I thought I'd do a background picture with some snow in it. Hopefully we'll have a good winter this year, and up in the mountains we'll get some snow and have a good snow base to help our waters and our streams and our reservoirs. But with that, we'll jump right into today's boot camp session. We like to start these by first recognizing all of our community partners. We could not do all these boot camp sessions without their time, their effort, and their expertise. So for those not familiar with the Small Business Boot Camp, it is a webinar series every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. And it's designed to help small businesses return from the COVID crisis stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by community partners from throughout the state. And on top of the weekly webinars, the Tuesday and Thursday webinars, it is a resource collective and a content library. And let's dive a little bit deeper into what that means. So the Resource Collective is a website we set up to help small businesses or help share the tools and resources and guides brought to us by our community partners with small businesses across the state. You can find the link to that web page in the middle of our Small Business Bootcamp website, or at the bottom of the screen, you can see the link as well, the address for it. On there, you can find guidance, business essentials, marketing strategies, etc., to help support your business. And as I mentioned, the content library, in doing these boot camps for over a year and a half now, we record every session and we share them on our website under the archive section. And on there, you can find a collection over 180 recorded webinars and presentations, along with their slide decks or other materials that the presenters have provided to help support small businesses. So as you look at this session or think back to other topics you may want to brush up on, we more than likely have it there in the archive section in our content library. And it's available for you at no cost to go in and view those previous sessions. If you're looking for a topic and can't find it, feel free to reach out to us and we can guide you to the session that would correspond with the business guidance you're looking for. It's a great resource. Another couple of resources we have are the state's information and resource page for COVID-19, arizonatogether.org. And then the Arizona Commerce Authority set up the COVID-19 business resources website at azcommerce.com/COVID-19. And on there, you can find additional business guidance for any size business, along with some financial resources that we constantly update as we get new information about different programs that are going on throughout the state. Another group of programs that the ACA has for small businesses are small business services, our workforce division, and our Arizona MEP, our manufacturing extension partnership. These are all programs that small businesses throughout the state can leverage to help their growth. For those looking to start or grow their business as well, we have our small business checklist. And this is an interactive online resource that helps entrepreneurs understand the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. So let's transition to some business updates. Just a reminder, everybody looks at doing their shopping on Black Friday, but on Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 27th, is called Small Business Saturday. And we're going to post up an article that lists how you can take advantage of the promotion activities around Small Business Saturday. So we'll post that in the chat. Also, the governor announced some new grants, so we're going to post the links to that information. Even though these were announced, we'll post the press release announcing them. Both organizations that received the grants do not have the most current information up yet on their websites. They are working on that. They're about a week away from the details on how those grants will be operated. But we will also share the links to those organizations so you can follow up with their websites and keep an eye out for that grant information. Also, the Maricopa County Small Business Resilience Program has been expanded, and there's a number of programs being run by both Prestamos, CDFI, and Local First Arizona. Prestamos has technical assistance and a very, very low interest rate small business loan program for those businesses in Maricopa County. And Local First is doing technical assistance, and they are also going to be managing a grant as part of that program. So we will post some of that information in the chat as well. And then just a reminder, don't forget about the employee retention credit, a very important opportunity to gain some additional funds for your business. I would definitely talk to your accountant about that program. So with that, we want to look at some upcoming sessions. The big session we've got coming up on this Thursday is our 200th Bootcamp session. We're very excited about it. We'll be joined with a short message from our CEO, Sandra Watson. We will have Jim Pipper from the SBA, Robert Garcia from the Office of Economic Opportunity, along with some veteran-owned small businesses to help share their stories. It's on veterans business programs, and it's part of this week's, the SBA is hosting the National Veterans Small Business Week, and so we are doing this program as part of theirs as well to help support veteran-owned small businesses. As many of you may know, we have a lot of military support in the state with a number of different bases, and we have a lot of veterans that live here, and so we want to help support the veterans, recognize their effort and their sacrifice, and also support them as they want to start and grow their businesses. So with that, we're going to go ahead and look at some other sessions beyond this week. So next week we have the ABCs of Business Startup. And then Wednesday, November 10th, we're doing a special session on the Maricopa County Small Business Grant Program that I just mentioned with Local First Arizona. Thursday, November 11th, we are not doing a session. It is Veterans Day, so we are supporting our veterans there and observing that holiday. And then the following week, we have Return Stronger in 2022 and Money Decisions for Return Stronger holiday season. So we've got some great sessions coming up. We're looking forward to those. So please join us. And with that, we will jump into today's speaker. We have Madeleine MacRae with us again. She spoke recently at one of our boot camps. It was a fabulous session. And we are looking forward to today's session on how to handle haters. We all know that in the holiday season that people can get really overworked, burned out, stressed out, and sometimes we're haters, you know. Unfortunately, I've been there before. It happens, but sometimes we need to know how to handle it, and it's a stressful time for everybody. So we're really excited about this session. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the time over to Madeleine and let her take charge.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for having me back. I'm so excited to be here. And I always like to have a lighthearted approach to angry customers. The title of this session many years ago was Handling Angry Customer Interactions. And honestly, that just feels so heavy. So I just like to make it lighthearted, how to handle haters, and just to keep it, remember that when you're having someone who's angry and you're having an interaction with them at that moment, you're just seeing a tiny slice of who they are. In that moment, they're behaving a specific way because they're upset. And in today's environment, we have so much overall fatigue and so much overall stress. There are so many things that are making people really brittle and they're not unbending, that these difficult customer interactions want to get out ahead of them before in the midst of the holiday season, and then they're taking over our lives. So I just want to give you some tools so that when you get into these situations, because it's super highly likely they will happen to you in your business, if you have a business dealing with people, it's likely someone's going to be a little bit frustrated at some point in the next couple months. And so this should just give you a couple of good tools to be able to deal with that. So I know we got some administrative stuff going on in the chat. So I love to interact with you. Feel free to do it on the chat or in the Q&A box. If you have questions, if you have real life scenarios you want to bring, you are investing your time with us today. So I want to make sure that we tailor make this just for you. And I'll hold back a little bit of time in the end so that we can answer some questions in case you have them. So also feel free to pop into the chat. I'll have you raise your hand and answer some questions. I like these to be really interactive because, as I said, you invested your time to be here with us today. So I want you to get the absolute most out of this session. So without further ado, let me go ahead and dive right in. So what do you do when you have someone who meets you in a moment when they're already angry? A lot of times when we're dealing with someone at this stage of anger, they've been brewing on it for a little while. They've been thinking about it. They've been trying to solve it. Maybe they've tried a couple different paths and nothing's worked out. So I want to give you some techniques on what can you do whenever you're dealing with an angry customer. Now, I'm going to talk about this specifically related to customers, but once you learn these techniques you can use anywhere in your business. You can use it with employees. You can even use it outside of business with people in your family and other interactions when the person who's coming at you is already heated. Okay, when they're already heated, we didn't get the chance to pattern interrupt early, right? We didn't intervene early. They're already angry. So whenever you're dealing with someone who's really, really angry and you're having that conversation, whether you're having it in person or via Zoom or via the phone or even in a chat, what's the number one thing that you can control in an angry conversation? Go ahead and pop it into the chat what your thoughts are about what is the number one thing that you feel you can control in an angry conversation. Because I've had it happen where people have tried to control something other than this thing, and it's kind of blown up in their face, right? Has anyone ever had it happen to them where they were in an angry conversation with a client, or the client was angry, you're trying to maintain your calm, and then you give them a solution and they just get more angry, they just get madder, right? So sometimes we think we can control the outcome, we can control the solution, but your guys are nailing over here. It's the only thing you can control in this conversation is you. Right? Is you. And whenever you have yourself under control, whenever you have a plan of how you're going to deal with this, it gets so much easier, right? If you don't have a plan and someone brings all their angry emotions at you, it's really hard to remember that you can't control them. You can't even control their acceptance of your solution. And sometimes when you pour that solution on too soon, it has, that science, the science thing that you did either as a kid or with your kids where you make a volcano, right? You put the baking soda and pour the vinegar and it just explodes. Sometimes it feels like that's what happens in our angry client interactions, right? We're trying to help them, but the more we try and help them, the madder they get. So what can we do to resolve that? So of course, yes, control yourself. Remember that there's lots of things that we're going to go over today, and there's lots of things to remember. But remember, first and foremost, you need to maintain your cool. If you get heated with them, then you're just pouring gasoline on that fire, and you're not going to be able to get through to them. So we'll talk about tons of techniques today. Don't worry, this isn't going to be just theoretical. It's going to be super practical today. So you're going to learn lots and lots of techniques. It's hard to keep your cool when someone is coming at you, especially if they start to make it personal. It's really, really hard to keep your cool. But the more you regulate yourself, the more you'll be able to get that mirrored by the other person on the other side of that conversation. So whenever you have all this, someone has got to be the bigger person, right? I call it someone has to get off that hamster wheel. And ladies and gents, it's got to be you. right? You cannot expect your customer to do it. They're not going to. They're mad. They want to be mad, right? Just want to stop my share for a minute. So I know that Robert owned here at the beginning that sometimes he's that person, like that's happened. He's been the person. So just, if it's been you, say me. It totally has been me. I have been that angry person, right? I have been that person who everything has gone wrong. And the last thing that I do is I'm going to call customer service for whatever company it is because I'm upset now. I've tried and tried and tried and tried, and my patience is worn thin. And when the person picks up the phone on the other side, when I finally get off hold and talk to a human, I just usually launch into this like, hey, I'm really mad. I'm not mad at you, but I'm going to be directing my anger towards you. So you have to remember that they're just a normal person who just so happens to be angry right now. Doesn't mean that they're just an angry person overall. Sometimes you got a couple of those, but really this is just a normal person who has got to de-escalate, right? And you have the tools to do it. After today, you will totally have the tools to do it. And what's going to make all the difference for you is your approach, because there is a way to handle this that's going to turn into a favorable outcome. And there's a way to handle it that's going to turn into an even more escalated situation. So before I launch into all the details here, which I'm going to give you, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background why you can trust me in sharing this with you. So I've been a coach and consultant now. I've owned my business for 6 years, but before that, I had a long corporate career where I had tons of success. And one of the departments that I was in charge of, they'd always put me in charge of departments that needed a little bit of overhauling, and I would put some fixes in place and some process improvement and hire some maybe new people, switch people around. So the department I was put in charge of for a company that sold a highly technical product was technical support and customer service. Now, we were a North American branch of a billion-dollar French corporation, and our customer service and tech support team was about 35 people. And we had locations in California, Florida, New Jersey, and Canada, so Toronto. And I was in charge of managing all of those places. And one of the things that we would have happen is, as I said, the product was a highly technical product. And we would have someone call us, a B2B client, so someone who's in front of their customer, call us because something's going wrong in the field. And they've already been trying to solve this for a while. They look stupid in front of their customer. They're embarrassed. They're angry. They don't know how to fix it. And we would have all of these escalated conversations. And one of the things that we had to do was, as a team, learn how to deal with these interactions in a way that actually worked. So I trialed a couple of things, I'll admit, right? I trialed some stuff that did not work, my friends, did not work. So what you're going to hear today is what actually does work. And some of it is happening here. Some of it is in your psyche, in your mind, in your approach. And some of it happens in the words that you use and when you talk about what you talk about. So sequence matters, and your internal disposition to this conversation matters. So we have had, when I left that department, everyone knew how to handle escalations, angry clients, and we actually had shorter call times because we were able to get those problems resolved. Even though the approach you're going to hear today seems like it's going to take you longer, overall, it's a much shorter pathway because we're giving people what they need right away instead of letting it draw out. So I'm going to show you what that is, but I just wanted to share a little bit of credibility so that I've walked this walk, and I certainly have made some mistakes. So I'm going to talk about these people. We're going to pretend like they're on the phone, but it doesn't matter whether they're on the phone or whether they're in person with you or you're dealing with them via chat. If you're dealing with someone who's angry via chat, my number one tip for you is to get them off of chat into an interaction where you can speak to them, because it matters. And the cadence of their voice is going to tell you a lot. So I'm going to break this down to what I call 3 easy steps. We all know this is not easy. So we're going to look at this in 3 different groupings of activities because there's kind of phases that go along with this call. So the first thing that you need to do is to let them vent, right? I just asked you a few minutes ago to think about whether you've ever been that person when you're the angry person. The last thing you want to do is have someone assume they know what the problem is. You want to get it all out. You have got to let them vent. This is the number one step that most people make a mistake on, because they hear the story for a couple of minutes and then they jump into solution mode. It's too soon. You've got to really let them get it all out. The truth is that they're emotionally full, they're bubbling over, and you have to let them pour it out for this and before you have space for solutions. So let me show you this way. I'm going to show you, I have a little glass of water here, right? So this glass of water is filled all the way up to the top, right? Think about what's going to happen if I start pouring. This is the angry person. This glass represents the person and the water represents how angry they are, represents their issue, right? They are full to the top when they meet you, when they're already angry. And if you start pouring in a solution, what is going to happen to your little cup, right? The cup is going to run it over. The cup is going to spill everywhere. And that's their added explosion of anger when you start to solve too soon. So in order for you to have space, your solution, we're going to represent by water. In order for you to have space for the solution, you have got to let them pour it out, right? If you let them pour it out a little bit, you have a little bit of space. But if you let them pour it all the way out till the very, 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 very last drop, they are available emotionally and intellectually to hear what you're going to say. If you don't do that full emptying, really truly letting them vent, if you just hear their story a little bit and then you try to pour things in, there might not be enough space. That's what's going to end up happening when they circle back to their story. If they keep circling back to their story, that is a great indicator that you did not complete step one enough. Let them vent. Get them to a place where they're emotionally neutral, where you have room to give them solutions. Because if you don't, they're going to circle back to it anyways, right? They are angry. They are not ready to hear you, right? They called because they want a solution, but they're not ready yet. And if you don't let them vent it out, it's not off their chest yet, right? You cannot fix it yet. They need to get through their emotions until they can hear your logic. You're not the one who's upset, they are. So some people, they might just tell it all to you in one big, huge vent, and then they're done. And you say anything else and they say no, right? I'm going to give you some talk tracks so that it sounds really, really nurturing, this process, but it seems like such a simple step. But I can tell you, after working with people, literally hundreds of people who are dealing angry customer calls or angry customer interactions of any nature, shortcutting this step makes your interaction almost double the length because they'll circle back to their story and they'll tell you all about it again. And if you've had that situation happen, now you know why. It's because you didn't let them vent enough, right? It's really super important. As humans, we have the need to be heard, to be understood, to be validated. And I'm going to show you a couple of good talk tracks that let you express what you've heard and express that validation. But right now, your one job is to listen and to be emotionally neutral, right? We talked about you can only control yourself. So when someone is upset, that's the number one thing. But how do you deal with that? They're upset and they're yelling at you and they're saying things towards you, maybe not exactly about you, but it kind of feels that way. How do you cope? It's the hardest thing to do when you're dealing with those angry clients. That what do you do to stay emotionally neutral? Because when they start getting angry, you start to feel your feathers being ruffled. So there's a couple of things that you can do to stay emotionally neutral. And it's really important to maintain good perspective here, right? This is one of the things you can absolutely do. They called you because they need and want your help. They absolutely do. It's not personal and you are the expert, but they're in their own way. Emotionally right now, they're in their own way. They can't hear you. So you need to maintain the perspective that they raise their hand to solicit your help. There's a very specific problem which you're trying to solve for, and you are the perfect person to be able to solve it for them. Now, if there's something that you actually aren't the perfect person and you're going to need to have a little bit of time, we can get to the place a little bit later. I'm going to show you how to layer that in later. But they called you because they need and want you. Even if they're acting abrasive towards you, that's just their anger speaking. They still need your help. You also want to clear the pathway so that you can hear the issue that's underlying the emotion. As you're doing this, they're being angry, so there's a lot of emotional add on, they might be dealing with a little tiny molehill, but their anger is making it seem like a huge mountain. So you have to listen through their anger to the issue. We're not getting to the issue yet. We're still in the venting stage, but these are your good listening skills that are coming in. This is not personal, right? They are angry with a perceived issue with your business, with your service, with your solution, with someone inside of your business. But even if they try to make it personal, don't feel like it's about you. It's generally not. Every once in a while, okay, it is about you. That's super rare. So let's set that aside. It's generally not personal. You have to be able to let it be about the situation, even if the situation is from a business that it was you that made the mistake. It's still not about you as a person. It's about something that's happened within the business. I had a business coach once who loved this tip, Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. Right? She told the story that she had a client who took everything so personally all the time. And she told her Q-tip, quit taking it personally. And what that client did is she literally took some Q-tips and she taped it to the top of her computer. She taped it at the mirror in her bathroom. She taped it a couple different places. So she would visually remind herself to quit taking these things personally. When we take it personally, when we make it about us, we're getting in the way, right? We're preventing ourselves from making it about what it's really about. So try not to take it personally, because generally that's not what it is about. And finally, remember, you're the expert here. You deal with these issues every day. They don't. They're not the expert. So don't assume that they know. They might think that they know. We're not going to rub it in their face that they don't. But you are the one who needs to maintain your expertise and to be able to be there to help and support them through this. So in order to do that, you have to take on the role of what I call witness and stenographer. You're listening. You're just there listening, and you want to take really excellent notes. Okay? You have to put yourself in a position to what I call be grounded and not absorbent during this venting phase. So that might seem really simple, or it might seem like a little bit theoretical, but I actually don't mean it theoretically at all. So when I'm taking an angry customer interaction, especially if it's on the phone, I make sure that both of my feet are firmly planted on the ground. I'll actually even kick off my shoes so I can feel the ground underneath me. And I'll either stand with both feet firmly planted, or I'll sit on my chair really squarely with both feet in the ground. And if their anger is really affecting me that day, maybe I had a bad day. Maybe I'm having an emotional situation going on in my own life, and their emotions are affecting me. I literally visualize their emotions going down my body, through my feet, into the floor. I visualize that process. I watch it. Maybe I make it a color of red and I watch it go down to the floor, down into the ground. And I let their emotions go over me, not get clogged inside of me. I'm a sort of person who I feel things really deeply. I have a big heart and I have an empathetic soul, and I feel things really deeply, and I feel other people's emotions. And if that's you, dealing with angry clients is probably that much harder. This one simple technique of visualizing it flowing over your body, down your body, through your feet, into the ground, letting that anger not get clogged up with you, because it's not yours to hold on to. It's theirs. It's one of the ways that I've helped other empathetic people really get through these angry customer interactions. If your legs are crossed, if you're blocking that flow, put both feet firmly on the ground and visualize that negative emotion going right into the earth, because it can absorb it, it can take it, and you don't need to hold on to their emotions. You don't need to hold on to their anger. Their anger is their responsibility, not yours. So next, when I said be a good stenographer, what I really mean is that I told you that you have to be paying attention to their story, paying attention to the issue underneath their anger, the facts. Keep track of the facts that they're expressing. Write them down. Take good and complete notes. We're going to use them in a minute, but it's really important for you to take that piece of control, because if you expect to hold on to everything that they've said without good notes, you're going to lose something. And it shows them a lot of respect. Remember how I told you that humans need to be heard? They want to be validated. They want to be understood. When you're taking good notes and you're keeping track of what has happened, what has transpired from their perspective, keeping track of what they say has happened doesn't mean that you're telling them that they're right? It means that you're telling them that they've been heard. And that's what we're trying to do here. They're venting, we're listening. And we're trying to listen as just that witness and stenographer. Next, this is a little bit of a counterintuitive one, because once they've spewed at us, this is often not what we want to do. But you want to express appreciation and ask for more. Once they've layered out that first round of like, all the things, and then this happened, and then that happened, and I'm so angry, and I'm so disappointed, and you guys are awful, and I can't believe it. The last thing that you might feel like doing is saying thank you. But I'm going to tell you, it's the most disarming approach that you can take. And you can do it in a really simple way. Got some talk tracks for you, right? So here's how you can take that appreciation without taking responsibility. Something like, you know what, Mrs. Jones, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Or I can see how frustrating that is. Or something even like, no wonder you're upset. You could even say something like, thank you for that. I'm getting a really clear picture of why this made you so upset. If you look at these talk tracks, you'll notice I'm not saying I am sorry. I haven't said I'm sorry yet. We don't apologize yet, because we're trying to show them that we appreciate them bringing this to us. And the truth of the matter is, when we have someone who's angry, there's usually a reason. Like, they're angry for a reason. And it is good for us, for our business, that they bring it to us, because if they don't bring it to us, how can we solve it? Right? So appreciation here, even though it's counterintuitive, it's a really great thing to do, because it allows you to express something genuine. But at this stage, I don't want you to be taking responsibility quite yet. You can take responsibility later if it really was your fault. But right now, I'm sorry is a throwaway. Express appreciation. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was part one. Remember, thank you is always going to be so much more powerful than sorry. Thank you expresses something. I'm sorry says, I'm sorry for that, but what is it doing for you? If you say, you know what, thank you for that, you're giving them back appreciation. Sorry is you trying to take away the pain. They're probably not going to be willing to let you take away their pain, right? If you've ever called into a big customer service department and the first thing they say to you after you share out this whole long story of why you're upset is, I'm so sorry, I apologize that happened. Do you really feel like, oh man, I got what I wanted there? I'm so grateful for that apology. No, you don't, right? It doesn't even feel genuine. It just feels like they're reading a script. So if you use appreciation right now, it's an amplifier of this expressive being heard. Next thing you want to do after you say that thank you is to find out if there's more, right? Remember how I talked about, I'll do these talk tracks in just a second. I'll share those with you. Remember how I talked about, sometimes they express their story. Woo, splashing. Sometimes they express their story and they told you the story, but they're not all the way done, right? They're not all the way empty. When you say, you know what, thank you so much for sharing that with me, I can see how that would be really upsetting. Is there anything else? You're opening the door. You're inviting them to say, actually, yeah, this also happened. Oh, okay. Thanks again for that. I really am getting such a clear picture of what went wrong here. Is there anything else before we move on? Right? Oh, actually, there is. Oftentimes, you only have to ask once. And that little prompt of, is there anything else? Is there anything more going on? Any more details you wish to share? They do on the second round. But I want you to ask twice. I want you to use these statements twice. So I'm going to share back on the screen my technology and I, hold on one second, share back on the screen some of these talk tracks. Is there anything else? Was there anything else about the product that was an issue, or the service, or the situation, or the function, or whatever it is, fill in? Was there anything else about blah, blah, blah that was an issue? Or you could say, could you tell me a little bit more about that? I see why that was frustrating for you. Could you just tell me a little bit more about about what went wrong about that. You can fill in the what that was with some details from what they said. This is not the moment to show them that you've been listening, right? This is not the moment to express all of what you've heard. That comes next. We're still in step one. We're 30 minutes into our call and we're still in step one. I give this an inordinate amount of time in training because it's hard to do, right? And it's counterintuitive. They say their piece and you want to say, all right, I heard you and let's move on. It's not time. Let them empty it all the way out. Is there anything else? Do that twice, at least 2 times. Usually at the second time, they'll be like, by that time, they're emotionally empty. They're back to neutral. They're willing to hear you. They feel respected, right? You don't want to just give them throwaway support. You want to give them genuine support where they feel heard, they feel appreciated, they feel validated, right? So you want to say that don't stop, there's a great phrase, don't stop when you're tired, stop when they're done, right? So you might be tired of hearing it. Sometimes people take this a little bit far and they go on and on and on and on and on. Sometimes you do have to pattern interrupt and you do have to move them forward. But in 95% of the time, if you let them vent and you say, you know what, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate the opportunity to hear what's been going on and to see what we can do about it. Is there anything else? And then they say something more. And you say, okay, great. I'm getting a really clear picture of what's going on. But before I move on to the next step, I just want to check in. Is there anything else or any further details that you'd like to share? Anything else that happened that's been upsetting? And that's it. Once you've done that twice, they're done. Usually they're done. There are those people who just can't stop being mad. And for those people, you have to decide that they're done, right? Once you've done it twice should be plenty. You don't have to continue to ask because that's been enough venting time. If you've really listened and you really let them get it out, that should be enough. Step 2 is get clear on what is and on what they want. This is the step where you get to show that you have heard what they've said. So step 1 is you listen and you validate, you think, you appreciate. Step 2 is you show them, you prove that you are actually listening and you want to move towards a resolution with them. Step 2 is not solve their problem. That's not yet. That's step 3. Step 2 is get clear on what is and on what they want. So it's really super important at this stage not to bring up what your policy is, not to push for a solution, not to say, well, this is what you should have done, right? You want to recap the facts as you've heard them, focus on what you can do, and then we're going to make promises and keep them. Okay. You don't want to blame the customer. I know a lot of us try not to blame the customer, but sometimes it sounds like we're blaming them, right? If they've made a mistake, this is not the time to bring it up, right? You're just recapping. You want to avoid laying out the evidence of what they may have done wrong or how they are in the wrong. Because we just got some trust from them. We just earned their respect, or at least they're willing to hear us. The last thing we want to do is start to show them what they did that was wrong, or what they should have done, or if we're making them this about what they should have done, they're going to feel blame, right? They're going to feel that you're blaming them. Even if you're not, that's how they're going to feel. So during this stage, all you do is recap what you've heard them say. So, Mrs. Jones, what I've heard you say is this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's it. You're just restating the facts. You don't need to retell their whole story, but remember I told you you're listening for the facts, the issues underneath the anger. The more you blame, if there's blame, there's going to be some escalation. If you say, well, this should have happened, or we have a policy for that, or it's our policy not to this or that, they feel blamed because they don't know your policies. This is not their business. This is your business. And when we say, well, we have a policy about this or that, they feel somehow like they're at fault for not knowing that. So they feel blamed. Even if that's not your intent, it's how it's perceived. And when there's blame, whoop, escalation. they put the anger right back up, and then you got to empty it out, right? So be very cautious about what you say when they're done. You're just going to recap. So what you can say is that, I'm sorry you're so upset at this stage. You can say you're sorry if you wish. It doesn't necessarily do you tons of good, but some people have this inner need to say it. So you want to make sure that you check in with them, right? To see if you've heard what they've said, if they're agreeing with it. And then you want to ask, is there a specific outcome, right? Some people have a very, very clear and intense picture about what it is that they want to have happen. Now, just because it's what they want doesn't mean it's what you can give. But you want to be clear on what they want, because if they have an expectation and you don't check in with what that might look like, they could have more frustration with you because you didn't mind read that. I know, seems unfair, but it's what happens. Disappointing their expectation is often the cause of more frustration. Sometimes people have an unrealistic expectation of us and they're angry and they want the sun and the moon and the stars, and we're not going to be able to give it to them. We just want to know what it is that they want, right? So in this step one, they've vented. We thank you for sharing that. Is there anything more? We've done it twice, 2 rounds of appreciation and checking in for more. And now we're recapping. What I've heard you say is, this is where I believe that we went wrong, or this is where I'm hearing that you're frustrated. And I'm curious if there's a solution that you have in mind. We're checking in with them because we want to know, and also really important to remember, it might seem like because we've let them vent that they are in control of the conversation. But my friends, he or she who asks the questions, and in this case, that's you, is there anything more, right? Did I get that right after you recapped? Is there anything that you have in mind to solve this? Those are all powerful questions that are giving you control of where you're moving this conversation. It's really helpful to remember that in any situation, whether you're selling or you're resolving issues, that the person who is asking the questions is the one who's actually directing the flow of the conversation. So when you want to be in control, remember how I said at the beginning, the only thing you can control is yourself? Well, this is one of those sneaky ways to retain control of the conversation where you can actually direct the flow. And that gives you a little bit more empowerment, even when you're dealing with someone who's really frustrated. So asking them what solution they have in mind is really helpful, so that all cards are on the table, right? All cards are on the table. Now, they might tell you something outrageous and outlandish. That's okay. At least now you know what they expect, okay? Gives you a little bit more power when you understand their expectation. You have to help them through the stages of this conversation. Stage 1 was anger, right? And we addressed that in step 1, right? Stage 2, where we're gaining agreement with them. If you say to them, this is what I heard you say, did I get that right? Odds are they're going to say yes. Guess what? They've given you a little bit of agreement. And when you have agreement with them, now they're more likely to agree with you on the solution. So once we get them out of their anger phase, now we're moving them in step 2 to an agreement phase. Now, that doesn't mean that they're agreeing with you on the solution. You're just trying to find a little bit of commonality with them, a little bit of common ground, so that they're willing to hear, they're willing to work with you on the solution. Once you've shown them that you've listened to them and that they've been heard and validated, they're much more willing to jump into a positive solution with you. So become their ally, right? You want to work with them on a solution that really feels for them like a win-win, and you want them to be on the same side as you. You want you both to be working towards this. So you want to use statements like, let's see what we can do together to resolve this, or let's see how we can solve this for you. The two of you together are a team now, because you both know what went wrong. And now you want to make a team with them on getting it to the next stage of how you're going to help them resolve this, right? Now, whenever you've done some of this solution finding, right? It's really important that or solution discovery, it's really important that you decide and isolate what you can do for them. So a lot of people start with, let's just take an example, right? Let's just say that you had someone who, you delivered a product to them and it was faulty. There's an issue with the product of some nature, right? Let's just say. And what they really want is their money back, instead of replacement. And what you can do for them is you can give them a replacement, right? So let's just say that that's the case, because it's helpful to have a situation. So they told you how they're angry and disappointed, and then they told you how it's not working. And what they want is just their money back, right? And what you can tell them is, what I can do for you is I can see about getting you a replacement on that. Maybe there's even some funds you have available for a second purchase or a future purchase. You can layer in what you can do, right? You don't want to say, unfortunately, we can't give you a refund. You never lead with what you can't do. Once you've heard what they wanted and you know what you can do, you want to lead with what you can do, right? Because it's a really important thing that you show them that you're trying and that you're working towards something, and you present them with an actual real option. If you have the opportunity to give them two choices where they can choose, well, you want to give them a little bit more agency. You want to let them choose if it's available to them. So let's say, for instance, they say, well, what I'd really like is my money back because this isn't even working. You say, I hear where you're coming from. And what I can do for you is we actually have a couple of different options. Option number one is we can send you or give you, or you can stop by the store and get a complete replacement, right? Get a brand new one. I'll make sure that it's there waiting for you. Or we can give you a credit on your account towards a future purchase. Those are the two things. They know, because you didn't say, well, what I can do is refund your money for you. They know that you can't do that. And they might circle back and say, well, I really want is a refund. And that's when you can say, unfortunately, instead of we, make it a me, I am not able to offer you a refund, but what I can do is this or this. Do either of those solutions work for you? Right? So they know naturally, if they've asked for something and you can't give it to them, that if you present them an alternative solution, that implicitly you can't do what they've asked. So leading with what you can do is always really helpful. Giving them agency, letting them pick, as I said, either this or that, lets them choose. Would you like this way or that way? That lets them feel a little bit more empowered. And when people are angry, one of the things that they feel is a little bit of powerlessness. So we're giving them back a little bit of their power by letting them choose which option, either this or that. And when you give them a choice, this one or that one, you make it binary. They can choose this one or that one, instead of making it either this way or the highway, right? If you make it an either or instead of a yes or no, you're creating their willingness to say yes to more. I know that seems weird, but it works much more effectively if you can give them a choice, an option. It's really powerful. Once you've pinpointed the best solution, right? The best solution you have to offer may not be their preferred solution. But when you've pinpointed the best solution, you want to recap what it is that you're going to do for them and what's going to happen next. The most important thing is, again, to give them clarity, to let them know what's coming, because that way you're creating a promise for them. If you say what's going to happen next is you're going to get an email, blah, 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 and then you send them that email, you're making good on that promise. You're reestablishing some of that lost trust, and you're giving them the chance to see that you do follow through on what you promise. It's a really helpful way, right? And before you wrap up the call, you want to make sure that you go back to thanking them. You really want to make this a strong connection. By this time, if you've done these steps well, even if they're not getting 100% of what they want, they're generally a lot closer to being happier than farther away, right? Every once in a while, you're going to have a person that there's nothing that you can do to make them happy. There are people out there like that, but the majority of people are not that way. The majority of people, if you show goodwill and you listen to them and you let them vent and you appreciate them and you ask them if there's more and you recap for them, you show them that you actively heard, you ask them what they want, and then you give them viable solutions, most people will be willing to work with you. And you want to make sure that when you thank them, you want to be honest with them. You can say at the very end of your call, I know this wasn't the easy situation and you were initially disappointed. And I just want to say thank you for giving me, make it personal, not us, me, for giving me the opportunity to work through this with you. Right? I really love being able to make sure that my clients are happy. And I really appreciate that you gave me the chance to work through this with you. And at this point, guys, one of the things I'm going to suggest very strongly, I like to give a buffet of options usually. So there's some range of options. You can tailor make it for yourself. Don't open Pandora's box. Let this be the completion of your call. Do not ask them if there's anything else. You already did that earlier. We got that out of the way earlier. Don't pile on. If they're calling about a situation and you did your work and you asked them if there was anything else, don't ask again at the end. So is there anything else I could do for you? It's a throwaway. Generally, they called for the reason, and if you solve the reason, they're there. And if there was a situation where they're going to need something more from you, they're already going to have said it, right? Because of the cadence of our call, they have had a chance already to ask you or to tell you the more. At this stage, you just thank them and you close the call. So in this case, again, remember how we said earlier that thank you is stronger than sorry. Again, here at the end, you don't need to keep apologizing. Most people don't necessarily want an apology. They really want a solution, right? Sometimes they were in the wrong, but you're still going to make it right for them anyways, even though it's not your fault. So thank you is always going to be stronger than sorry. And it's why we end our call with, thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to resolve this with you. I know it was a little hairy when we got first started, and I really appreciate your willingness to work through this with me and to accept some of the solutions that we have available for you. Then you just recap what you're doing. I'm going to follow up with an email for you, and you'll see that in your inbox in the next 24 hours, or you'll see that in your inbox in the next 5 minutes, right? I really appreciate it. And, thank you so much. Then you pause, they're going to say something, and you say, all right, well, thanks again. Have a great day. That's it. You wrap it up. And then you follow through with what it is that you said you're going to do. And those 3 but mighty steps are the way that you can take control and you can have customer interactions that start off as difficult and and complete as resolved, right? An angry customer is so often a chance to win a raving fan because our values, our brand voice, what we stand for really is tested when things go wrong, not when things are going perfectly. So when we have someone who we've dropped the ball on them or something's gone wrong, it gives us a chance to prove to them that we are as good as that we say we are, and that we are going to stand behind our promises fully and completely. So that was what I had to share with you today about how to handle haters, how to deal with those really challenging customer interactions so that you can turn your angry clients, those haters, into raving fans. And while we're wrapping up here, just wanted to check in on the chat or in the Q&A box. I don't see anything popping up, but if you have any questions or you'd like me to take anything further, I have a few some time available, and I want to open up the floor for you just in case there's anything. If there's nothing, I would love for you to pop into the chat. What is your aha moment? What is your takeaway from today? What's staying with you? What was relevant? What are you going to use as you walk out into the world, back into your business? Because training is a powerful resource, and it's most powerful when it gets leveraged inside of your business, right? When there's action that marries up to it. So it's a little opportunity here for a little bit of Q&A if you have some, or if you have some real life situations or things that you would like to hear a little bit more about. Otherwise, go ahead and pop your aha moment, what are you taking out of our call into the chat, and we'll take a peek at those and share them with the group as they come in. So Robert, is there anything further on your side? Any questions or thoughts that you had that you wanted to share?
No, I'm going to comment though what Pamela just put in there. Love the statement. An angry customer is an opportunity to gain a raving fan. Um, I've been that angry customer and become that raving fan. I know it does work.
Yep,
When you go out of the way, when you have someone go out of their way to take care of the upset customer.
that's
Um,
right.
and I've tried to do that with my experience in big box retail. I've been at the customer service desk for many a times, you know, coming up with a solution, giving them some options. So when Madeline was talking about making sure you bring back a couple options, bring those back. I've had to step aside, let me see what I can do for you, and knowing that I can't do what they want, but bringing back a couple options, and then they have that opportunity to make a choice, and it does go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really helpful thing to remember that whether or not you can give them what they want, asking them what they want and hearing them and just even being willing to entertain it for most people, that's enough, right? Again, you're going to have some people who are just, there's nothing you can do to make them happy. Well, we want to solve for the 95% of people that there is something you can do to make them happy. And then we'll handle those little 5%ers, those little outliers, right? I have a question come up. Have to clear most things through the boss first. Do we try these steps first or wait for the boss's answer? So the answer from the boss is that last piece, right? So it's the last piece of the solution, right? What I can do for you. So in the case, Liz, where you have to go and ask someone's permission or double check what the solutions could be, what you do is you do all the steps and you even ask them what they want. Okay, you take all your diligent notes, you do all the steps, you ask them what they want, and then you say, okay, well, here's how this works. So what I can do for you is I'm going to go and be your advocate, right? I'm going to go talk to the boss, whoever that might be. You can use their name or their title. The boss is, that maybe seems a little bit not as close to you. So I'm going to go talk to John, right? And I'm going to see with you what it is that we can do. So I know that his schedule is a little bit full today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go have that conversation. I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to see what options we have for you. And I am going to insert promise here, follow up with a phone call, send you a text message, do an email, whatever it is. If you have to circle back to them with a solution, I would highly, 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 highly recommend that you set a follow-up appointment with them right then and there, right? What I can do is it's going to take me, a day to to have a chat to see what solutions look like. And what I can do is, why don't we set up a time to chat tomorrow or the following day, right? Does 2:00 in the afternoon work for you? How about 4? Set an appointment with them to have that recap and to present your solutions. So when you go back, remember what I told you, we'd never highlight what they wanted that we can't do. Well, you said you wanted this, but we can't do that. Or you said you wanted this, but it's our policy not to do that. If you'll notice, none of my talk tracks are about the policies. Your policies are for you. They're not for your customer. They're to guide your decisions. What you're trying to do is present solutions that the customer is willing to hear. Right? So when you have that recap meeting with them, you say, Mrs. Jones, again, I want to say thank you so much for sharing all of your frustrations with me yesterday. I certainly see where you're coming from. As I promised, if you want to really win trust, use the words as promised. It's a really simple trust hack. But as promised, I went and I had a chat with John. And what we've come up with are a couple of different options for you. What we can do is this or this. Which one of those two things suits you better, right? That's the way to do it. You just start again with a little recap and appreciation, and then you dive into the solutions with focusing on what you can do. So great question, Liz. Let me just double check and see if there's any other ones. Listen and place concerns instead of initially coming from a place of no, right? That's right. Even if there's no way that you can give them what they want and they're being totally unreasonable, the only chance you have to gain some trust with them is to let them vent, recap, active listening, ask them what they want, even if you already know what they want, even if you know the answer, you are still controlling the conversation by asking the question. So ask even if you already know the answer, and you'll get so much from these interactions. So thank you so much for all the great aha moments. If you want to scroll back through the comments or in the chat, you can see what other people shared. So thank you guys so much. That was a really powerful session. Thank you for all of your awesome comments and feedback. And Robert, I'm going to pass the microphone over to you.
Perfect timing. I want to thank Madeleine for this great presentation today. I hope everybody's able to get a lot out of it. Great comments in the chat. Thank you for the interaction. Again, thank you, Madeleine, for the presentations you've done with us on the boot camp. If you did see Madeleine's first one, I encourage you to go back in the archive and take a look at it. It was a great presentation as well.
Thank you.
So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up and then get you out of here right at 10 o'clock. Again, thanks you, Madeleine, for joining us today, and thank you all the attendees for participating. And we hope to see you on Thursday for our 200th boot camp. We're excited about that session. So we'll see you then.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.